Hey, so it is the 6th of February, 2024. I'm super happy to be jumping back into the UX Research Toolkit. It's something that we built together as a community last year. I'm very passionate about building things out in the open and also passionate about reaching consensus when we're building things. I know there's some other people who said that they would join, so we'll just give it some time and we'll see if anyone jumps on. But at the moment, yeah, my name's Mo from the Bitcoin Design Community. If you guys want to do a quick introduction of yourselves as well, feel free. Loic and then Carter. Um, Michael.
I'm Loic, Bitcoin designer, uh, trying to learn from you, and so I can contribute to open project also. I'm from Benin. As well.
Hey, my name's Carter. I'm kind of just a design hobbyist at the moment. I've played around with these design tools for a really long time, but I'm hoping to be able to turn what is a hobby into um, maybe a career, as well as I just really want to be able to help out as much as possible in the space. I'm from the US and hope to learn a lot during these sessions.
I love that. You know, Carter, this is how I started my journey here in the Bitcoin space, was just jumping on calls like these and learning and just contributing. And I learned by contributing, and that's been a very, very nice journey to be on. So you're super welcome to ask any and all questions on this call. It's an open space.
Well, thank you so much.
Welcome. And Michael, is this Michael from the community or is this a different Michael? Do you also want to say hi?
This is he, my coach. But I'm on the move and on mobile now, so currently, so I'll probably just listen in today.
Oh, all good. Okay, that is the Michael. Okay, I prepared a little bit of a introduction into this project because I know that this project might not be familiar to many of you jumping on this call. I'm going to do a little bit of a share screen. I literally put together this Figma introduction super quickly before our call. I'm going to do a little bit of an introduction to what the toolkit is. I'd like to decide if more research is needed to be done on the toolkit, to iterate on the toolkit. I'd like to decide on what changes we can make to the toolkit straight away and how it can possibly be linked to the Bitcoin design guide because we're wanting to link it more to the Bitcoin design guide. I'll link in the Bitcoin design guide here for those of you who might not be familiar with it. But this is one of our core projects here in the Bitcoin design community. And yeah, so we built out the UX Research Toolkit last year. It was super fun. There were a core group of us that built this together. I did not build this on my own. I'm very passionate about bringing the voices of the users to the products that we build to make sure that we're not building products for ourselves, but we're building products for real people. And part of that is about using research to understand while we build and before we build. So we built this toolkit. This is just a screenshot of the homepage of the toolkit. I'll share the link later on. But the goal of the toolkit was really to provide Bitcoin product teams basically with hands-on methods, like basically like a recipe book, to be able to understand their users, understand problems, and use research to come up with those with solutions. The goal of the kit, is to make it completely free and accessible to everyone in the whole ecosystem. And it's built on Framer. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Framer, you know, um, website development tool. Did someone raise their hand? Oh. So it's built on Framer, which is a tool for building websites. It was super easy. I'm not a developer or a coder, but I was able to build it on Framer, and the content was actually co-created by a whole bunch of us using Google Documents. So when we wanted to create content for the toolkit, we put the content first in Google Documents. We reached consensus together, and once we reached consensus, we only then put it online. Oh, Johns is here too. Nice to have you, Johns. So, who is the audience of the toolkit? Well, the toolkit was built.
UX Research Toolkit.
Who are you talking to, Johns?
Oh, sorry.
You're so funny. Okay, who is the audience of the toolkit? The toolkit is basically built. It's built for these builders who are working in the ecosystem. They do not have access to a full time. Some of them, it's just literally like two developers and that's it. So, there is sometimes on these open source projects, there is no dedicated UX designer. So, having a dedicated UX researcher is a step above. And most of the projects within the community have a dedicated UX designer or front end developer slash UX designer. And they do not have the project means to hire in a full time UX researcher. That more exists in larger commercial companies. So that is the goal of this toolkit, is to make things super simple for these teams to just come in, grab in, and be able to use it. And this is what it looks like at the moment. On the homepage, you basically have that here on the homepage, and then you have the teams asking themselves a very simple question like, "Are we building the right thing? We're going to launch our product. What do we do? How do we set up a long-term, research process? How do we get buy-in from the rest of the team?" And then when they click on that question, they'll immediately be taken to the resources that we decided as a community would be the best resources to answer that particular question. And then when they click into this question here, they then are provided with this recipe book to conduct a competitive analysis or do the rapid prototyping. So we really try to keep things super simple and accessible, and stay away from heavy terminology or things that people didn't understand. It was more important for it to be adopted. My vision for the toolkit, this is my own personal vision for the toolkit. I'd love to see the Bitcoin UX Research Toolkit adopted more within the ecosystem. I'd love to see 10 projects over the next year in the Bitcoin design ecosystem actually practically using the toolkit. And I'd love to see more builders actually using data to inform their product decisions. And using that data, I use the word AKA, voice of the users. So I don't like to use the word data. I prefer to use the word voice of the users to make product decisions. So that's my vision for the toolkit. And I'll stop there for now to open it up to any questions, because I feel like I've been talking too much. Are there any? Hey, Jakob is here as well. Jakob is an OG, by the way. He was one of the guys who helped us to build this project. Do you want to introduce yourself quickly, Jakob?
For being late. I'm a designer at Adobe and involved in Bitcoin design for 2 years, more or less. Yeah, that's it.
Jakob is a complete OG. He was one of the four people. We held hands and we walked down the road and we built this toolkit over the course of a few months. And Christoph, who's also on this call, was also one of those people as well. So just want to say, I want to add that as well. So yeah, my vision for the toolkit, I'd love to see more adoption. I fully understand that research is something that a lot of product teams don't see a lot of value in, because they feel that it takes up too much time. But I do feel very passionate about building products where the voices of people are used and there are real use cases behind the products that we build. We're not just building products for ourselves, we're building products for real particular use cases. And we can only get those use cases by actually speaking with people and communicating with the people we're building the products for. In the last year, to my knowledge, the UX Research Toolkit has been used in 2 projects. It's been used in Bitcoin Core, which I work on with Christoph and Jakob and a few other people in the community. And I've managed to collect some data in terms of how the UX Research Toolkit has been used. There's a feedback button on the actual website itself. And 3 people gave some feedback, but it's not a lot of feedback that we have. And then I also looked at which videos were the most watched on YouTube, because all of our videos on YouTube are watched and recorded. So I went back and I looked at which videos were the most popular videos in the community in terms of the research calls that we've had. Um, the third thing that I looked at was I looked at what is actually practically being used in the community, because I like to think of things in a very practical way. It's one thing to have this recipe book of this is how you do things and this is how you should be doing research. But when you look at the actual way things are being done, you often find that it doesn't follow the recipe book. So I went in and I looked at what is actually being used out in the wild in terms of research, and I'm happy to share that with you as well later on in the call. But yeah, that's it for me. And I just want to say there was a lot of people who actually spent a lot of time working on this kit together with me, and I'm super grateful for that. So yeah, that's basically it. And I will add in the link here to the toolkit. It's on bitcoinresearch.xyz. Um, I will add in the link in the chats, and I will open up the floor to discussion or to any questions you might have for now.
Do we want to somehow I wonder, do we rely just on the feedback that is provided in the forum, or do we want to somehow structuralize it into some, I don't know, quite. I'm just wondering how, if let's say 10 projects will use it and we will manage to promote project, try to encourage them to use it, and then do we gather their feedback in like a structured way? Do we hop on a call with them, or just rely on the forum? What do you think is best?
I'll open that question to the floor. What do you guys think would be a good way to approach this?
I remember I had some thoughts about this a few months ago.
Go for it.
Although I don't remember exactly what I thought then, but now I think that if if someone agrees to use it, like from the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be especially interesting if they use it like a few times, or like they use it for some time, and if they could somehow, I think what would be the best for us is if they somehow provide feedback every time they use it, so in a kind of like a diary way, right? So they have a problem, and then they can go to the toolkit, they try to somehow use it, find out the answer for the problem or whatever, and then at the end of that process they can like write down their thoughts, right? I think it'd be especially useful if they do it just after they do it, because then it'll be kind of fresh, because I feel like it's not an easy, like it's not a product that we can kind of test live with them easily, right? Because it's not like someone is working on a project and they are in their own thoughts and they are in their own process, and basically an observer would be, I think, disruptive, and they would not work the same if like we know we jump on a call with them and then see how they use it. So I think it'd be kind of better if they use it naturally and they just write down thoughts somehow, how it was.
Can I take the floor? Okay. Before jumping to the Jacob question, I think there is a main question we had to answer before, and this question will be how to know people use the US Research Bitcoin toolkit. The first question will be that: how are we going to manage to know who used the toolkit to work on his project or not? If we get an answer for this question, we then can, track all those people who use it to get feedback from them, and so we can know how many people use the toolkit and know if we get what we need, like 10% or not.
I'm just taking notes here. I'm just leaving the floor open to you guys. So, yeah.
Okay, great.
Any ideas?
So
Go
to,
ahead.
to let people use the toolkit is something special prepare for this, like advertising or invite some new project that going to launch to use it. Uh, is there any, way to accompany those uh, builders using the toolkit or not?
Okay. Carter, any ideas from you? Oh, sorry, Carter, you're very your sound is, yeah, now you're good. You're good.
Sorry, is it better? Is my coming through
It's still a little bit far away.
now? I agree with Loic that establishing those preliminary questions are vital to kind of figuring out these essentially hurdles of. I definitely think that communication with the users of the tool, like Jacob was saying, like having those calls back and forth. I know that's not necessarily the best way for this, but I think the communication back and forth is definitely necessary.
Yeah. So I made some notes over here. Is okay. From Jakob is that the feedback that would be collected, getting the feedback. This can't be like a normal usability test where we share the website with someone and we say, hey, tell us how you think the website is. The most valuable feedback would be on when it's actually being used, which that came from Jakob. And then from Carter as well as from Loic is basically to understand a core set of questions that we want to understand before we make any changes to the toolkit. What are the questions that we would like to answer? So I'm just going to, in this Figma file here, I'm going to share the link to this Figma file here because let's see, copy link here. I think we can, I like things to be very practical and very hands-on because I think that everyone's time is very precious. Whoever's here on this call, so I think it feels like the next step we can do is we can try to understand what are the questions we would like to answer, and from the understanding the questions that we'd like to answer, we can then decide on what could be solutions to answering those questions. Before we move into the questions to answer, I want to share a little bit of information with you, which I think would be useful in also coming up with the questions. Now, I'm going to share my screen here. This is a GitHub page. So I'm just going to go here and I'm going to share the screen here. Okay. Now this is an exercise that I did for the UX Research Toolkit, and I think it might be very relevant to the discussion around what questions we answer. Um, we've had many calls within the Bitcoin design community, so we've had like.
Sorry, are you sharing? Because
Oh,
I don't see anything.
sorry. Here we go. 1 second. Here, this one. Okay. We've had many calls in the Bitcoin design community, and there's been, if I count, I think there's been like 30 in total. I haven't added all of them here into this. This is a GitHub repository, which I just used to collect all of the information together. So I went through all of the calls that we've had practically in the Bitcoin design community, and I took the YouTube recording of that call. I added in the link, and then I looked at the call and what the topic of the call was, and I tried to ask myself the question, what was the main question that these people were trying to answer on this phone call? And when we looked at this call number 17, the question was, are we building the right thing? Again, with this call here, are we building the right thing? Then we did a survey, are we building the right thing? So there were a bunch of all of these calls that we had. We're about to launch our product. What do we do? And then I tried to look at the research methodology, or UX methodology that was used to answer this question. What I noticed was that in the toolkit we have, I'll show you something here. We have are we building the right thing? When you go to the toolkit here and you look at the question, are we building the right thing? You click on it and you see that competitive analysis comes up as a recommended tool, and you also see that rapid prototyping comes up as a methodology recommendation. And then when you come to the actual method, I go back to this tab again. When you come back to the actual method that was used for that particular call in the community, it was not actually any of those, the methods. Yes, for the rapid prototyping, but what I noticed as a discrepancy is that the methodology recommendations that we make in the toolkit are not what is actually used out in the wild, if that makes sense. So that's something that has become very clear by just going through all of the calls in the community, looking at what was the question that the team was trying to answer, and what was the actual method that was used. So that's a little bit of an eye opener in terms of how we're practically doing things in the community versus here's the methodology and go run with it. So I think that's also something, some useful information to add as well. I will share this link in the chat as well. So yeah, how it's used out in the wild. Oh, that's the Figma file, and this is here it is. There is a discrepancy between how things are practically being done in the community versus what is currently present in the toolkit. So yeah, I'll just allow you to digest that information. I'm happy that there is a discrepancy, because then it allows us to work with very real practical ways of how things are being solved in a very real way. So yeah, we have this Figma board now, which is here, and I've presented all of the information and that kind of thing. How does it feel if do you guys feel that you have enough information to start together to think as a group about what would be some good questions to answer before we actually move into the problem solving space? Does it do you feel like you have enough information, or are there any questions? Good. Please tell me if I'm talking another language. Like sometimes I'm so close to the product that everything makes sense for me, and it might not make sense for everyone.
You just ask a difficult question. I don't know if you have enough. I guess, yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, if we can, there's a Figma file over here. If we can hop into the Figma file together and be very, very hands-on, I will put some sticky notes here. Maybe we can have a bit of a working space over here. I will call this, what questions do we need to answer? Or what questions do we need to answer, what's not making sense. Um, this is really it's more the problem space, I'm going to call this the problem space, right? So I'm just going to copy this here and put it here, and I'm going to call this the problem space. Okay, so it's really just thinking about the problem space around this product. Thinking about the problem space. Okay? And there's some sticky notes in here. Jakob is already going crazy. Um, Feel free to grab a sticky note and just put in any notes you think that is a problem space, or any questions you think we need to have answered. So we're here in the Figma file. So I will also grab some sticky notes here, and maybe we can just take some 5 minutes to fill in some sticky notes together around the problem space. Feels like everyone is yes. Okay. So Carter had to hop off, and he hopes to be more valued to the discussion next time. Okay. Also, there was another researcher who wanted to join this call as well, and she was on one of the previous research calls. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to join. Her name is Val. She helped out a bit with the UX research on Bitcoin Core. So maybe we can do the rest of the calls a little bit later, because then they might be able to suit her time. But we can discuss that. But yeah, so I see you've added in some questions, Jakob. You moved into the problem space and questions. Um, so I'll just read out some of the questions that we have here as sticky notes. Um, there's one question. One for me is, what is the difference between the actual research done in the community versus what is present in the toolkit? The second question is, how are projects using the toolkit? Um, the third question is, does the website communicate what it is well? Do users know how to use it? Good question. Um, Another one from Jakob is, are teams successful in finding the right method? Also a good question. One from Jakob says diary study as well. Um, Another one, should the toolkit remain on Framer, or should it be moved to GitHub, something like Git pages, um, so that it is more accessible for people to contribute to? Um, Toolkit feedback, how to know projects that have used the toolkit, a good question. And will a team member be there to support the project using the toolkit? That's also a good question, Loic. That's actually been me in the community most of this time, supporting the projects. And adoption and awareness. Let me just add here. Mm-hmm. Okay. We have a whole bunch of questions. I'll give you guys a moment to look at those questions and just skim through them. And then how does it feel if each person has two votes? So whoever's here I'm doing this in a John's by Harry style, because John's normally allows people to vote. Um, just grab the stamping tool here, which is at the bottom. And just use anything you want here to, in terms of the questions that we have, in terms of the problem space. What do you feel are the questions that would, if we answer these questions, it would have the biggest impact on this project? So if we take some time to answer these questions, it's going to have the biggest impact on this toolkit, on this product. So just go ahead and grab the stamp and just take your two votes and just place them on a sticky note that you think, if we answer these two questions, it would have the biggest impact on this project. So yeah, I'll go ahead now and start voting, and feel free to start voting as well. Jakob, do you think we should have 3 votes or should we stick with 2? I feel like I could do a third vote as well. Should we do 3? What do you think?
Maybe John's maybe can say.
John, what do you
He's
think?
busy
Shall we
now.
do 3 or should we do 2?
Two forces you to prioritize more,
Yeah, that's a
I
good
guess.
one.
I'd usually go with 3, but yeah, I like the odd numbers. But yeah, go 2. It'll work.
Okay,
Limited supply. Limited supply.
we go for 2. We do 2.
I mean, we still can choose more than 3, like, areas to focus on, depending how the votes will be spread.
Okay, what if we do a wild card and do the wild card with something, not the green thumbs up, just use something else that you think would be distinguishable. So like anything else.
So like the third vote, right?
Third vote, we call it the wild card, and that one is just any other symbol, not the green thumbs up. And Loic, feel free to vote as well. Okay, this is for you as well to vote.
Oh, sorry. I was saying I can't get you very well.
You cannot hear me very well.
Yeah, then I get you.
Now you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, feel free to vote as well, Loic. So use your voting card as well. So just grab a 3 thumbs up.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
And Christoph is telling us that his RBENV install is not working because apparently this is compiled for ARM 64 and not 86. Okay. So very useful information for us, Christoph. He's
He used this chat as clipboard, I guess.
cryptic nonsense.
But in general, I think all of these questions are very important.
Yeah, I think so
and
too.
are like we will have to take them into account. I think all of them.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so John's is busy commenting here. Yeah, John's has a good one. Do we actually know how much of research is actually being done? We do not know, John's. Very good question. We do not know how much of research is being done. We only know like projects that I've actually jumped into and facilitated a research sprint. I can say with full transparency that research has been done in those projects. But projects that like I have not personally been involved in. I know Jakub does research at Get Albi as well. That's the other open source projects that I'm aware of. But no, other than that, very little data on who is doing research and how.
I think there's the thing you've done with this tagging that research calls what kind of tool they used. I think this is a really big data, let's say, for us. And
Yeah,
already shit.
take your time. Jakob. Yeah, the GitHub repository that I shared with how research is being done in the wild versus what is present in the toolkit, I think this gives a very good indication that the methodologies which we are presenting in the UX Research Toolkit are not necessarily the methodologies being used out in the wild by projects, especially here in the community when we have calls. Very intuitively, I feel that a lot of the calls that we have in the community, which are the research calls, there's at least one call in the beginning where we're trying to understand the scope of the project, and we're trying to understand, after we understand the scope of the project, we're trying to understand, well, what kind of research is needed after understanding the scope. So there's this hole there that's very clear is we're having a lot of these scoping calls in the community to understand what's needed. And then after the scoping call, we're working together, we're creating a project plan, and then we're moving into the doing the work, the speaking with users and all this stuff. It's muted. And Michael, feel free to chime in as well, because if you're able to.
You hear me now?
Yeah, here.
Okay, so I have two ideas. One is we can like follow up on all those teams you identified, which methods they used, and just ask them, okay, you used this method, how it went, how it went, what was the like just basically recap, what was the problem, how it went, it was useful, and maybe like what kind of method you used, how did you use it, kind of high level, right?
Yeah.
So in that way, we would um, I would have, I think, great big amount of knowledge that we can basically improve the toolkit
Yeah.
from it. And the second thing I just want to say, I'm preparing myself for a bigger research that I thought of doing with Bitcoin design. So Albi can be just, I can just try to use Toolkit myself in that, and probably organize some call. I'm still wondering if it's more useful to do it with because it's regarding NWC, not Stuart Connect, and I'm still wondering if it's better to do it with like totally open call, like for everyone to come, or more. We started like a small NWC community with NWC builders, and I'm wondering maybe that'd be better, just not to like have to do intro and NWC just have already kind of specialist in that. So I'm still kind of wondering, but something will be done in, and I can try to use Toolkit myself and see how I can do a diary or whatever with using that.
Yeah. I have to speak for me personally as well, is I'm very familiar with all of the methodologies in the toolkit. So when I do research in the community, I just go and I grab the Google document which was used on another project, which is already in the toolkit, and I just duplicate that and then I work from there. That's actually how I've been using the toolkit. So yeah, I've not been going with. I go into the toolkit. I look at the questions, but I use that sort of as a rough framework. I quite intuitively select which methodologies to use um, based on the project itself. So I feel like there's a little bit more needed in terms of these kickoff calls with projects. And as Jakob said, we have this here, which is this over here is very useful information. This is basically every single research call we've had in the community, as well as which method was used in that research call. And I think, you see a lot of product planning over here. I wouldn't say product planning, it's more research planning. There's a lot of planning that happens before a research project is actually kicked off. There's planning, we do some prototyping, then we consolidate the research. At the moment in the toolkit, we don't have really anything about how to consolidate research, like put all of the information together and make product suggestions. Once again, there's a lot of product planning. There's a lot of product planning over here. We've used jobs to be done a lot. That's been the one that we've been using the most in the community. Um, Something unique to the Bitcoin space is doing technical research before actually moving into coming up with UX solutions. And this is something that we did with PayJoin. This is something that we're doing also with Bitcoin Core. So there is some technical research that goes on as well as a research task. So yeah, I mean, I think this is very useful in terms of this. So yeah, I think we definitely need to go into what's practically being done in the community, um, versus just having the toolkit and saying here's the toolkit and this is what method would work in this sense. But yeah, happy to hear your thoughts on that.
I think I would contact those builders,
Mhm.
and some of them are our projects, so it's also
Yeah,
easier.
exactly.
And
There's
and try to kind of write down, come up with some very high level questions, uh, like what did you use this method, how it went, was it useful? Maybe you can show us a delivery from that method or something like that, and then not to like into over details and try to overly analyze how it went, but just to see um, uh, which were really useful, which went well, and maybe what kind of methodology they used that is not in the toolkit, and then try to somehow incorporate that into the toolkit.
Yeah, 100%. I'm definitely on board with that. I definitely want to do that. I feel we need to do that as well. And you, Johns, any ideas? And Loic, any ideas?
I got some ideas around like using it as like a training thing. Um, for example, uh, a new designer coming in, getting mentorship or something. Um, to because obviously like some of these concepts you always have to like explain to like, oh well, if you like think about user stories, think about jobs we done, think about do user testing, etc., etc. So as a resource, definitely could point people to that, new designers to there. But that also, sorry, I was eating and my mouth is like on fire right now
You're good. You're
because
good.
it's like so much hot sauce. But yeah, the other thing that I don't have a concrete idea, but definitely want to do a bit more with designers this year at Bolt Fun. So I don't know. I'm trying to think about like ways that could be integrated somehow. But I'll let you know when it comes up with.
That would be
UX Research Toolkit Hackathon.
yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Like
Something.
build a project with, yeah, I mean, use your UX Research Toolkit to your project and then write extensive feedback, and the best feedback wins.
Well, this is the designer fun kind of angle, right? So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, so it could definitely become something like that. But it's I don't know. It's very loose in my head. Give me time to think.
Johns, something just occurred to me. There was a project in Vault Fun that conducted research. We shared it in the research channel as well in the Bitcoin design community. He did some great research. He put together a bit of a case study, and they used that to inform their design decisions. Do a lot of the projects who like they take part in Bulk Fund, do they blog about like what they're doing? Could we find those as like blog posts on the Bulk Fund platform? Because
Yeah,
they
you could.
really, mhm.
Yeah, you could. We finally have a search bar, so you could test it out there.
Yeah.
But I do remember agreement and stuff like that. I think they wrote about some user research. There've been a couple of them in there. We don't have like a dedicated research kind of like categorization, so it
Mhm.
might be a little tricky for you,
Yeah.
and it might be lost in like somebody else, like somebody a project's updates. But actually, that that kind of thing can be integrated of like asking these questions about who you're building it for, what you're designing, like what you're designing, what problems are you trying to address. Those things are uh, like challenges that we could set for the people building projects in the community. So maybe that's one way. With like, hey, this month you have a challenge to, you know, answer one of these questions from the toolkit and use these things. And maybe you win a prize. Maybe you just feel
Yeah, I
cool
love
about it.
that. Yeah, I love that idea.
So happy to brainstorm about it a bit more. But yeah, we can continue
Yeah,
later.
Jakob also
Yeah,
gives thumbs up for those. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah, well, I like both of the ideas. This one and using it as a kind of teaching tool, learning tool for because I think that the toolkit is most useful in either projects who don't have any designer or researcher, right? So they can kind of try to do it themselves, or for like beginners, that'll be the most useful. Of course, for more advanced as well, but
Mhm.
most beneficial would be, I think, those two groups. So definitely, kind of junior designers that I don't know, with Summer of Bitcoin, initiative, somehow
That's a
we
good
could
one.
connect that.
That's a good one. Summer of Bitcoin. Yeah, it's a good one. They're just picking it off. Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm making notes here.
There's a question by Loic about a team member to support the project using Toolkit.
Cheers,
So
John.
I think, cheers, Jones. I think there shouldn't be a person who support.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there could be a designer who support, uh, but we shouldn't support using the toolkit. We should see how they use it, like
Yeah.
without support, because the goal of it is kind of, it's a tool you can use, and in the real case we will not be there to support, right? So we kind of need to see where they encounter problems and just talk about it and find it out and then fix. But there can be a team member to like regularly ask those questions, right? But just not for support, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, Jacobs, I got you. What I'm asking really is like, do they?
Yeah, that's great. That's great idea. I think I mean, from us, Mo is basically half of the projects, or even more than half of the projects. So
Yeah, exactly.
you could kind of take that role if you want. But
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm happy to take it. Yeah.
although I think a person doesn't need to be involved in the project itself, someone needs to just check from time to time and ask questions. What did you
Sure.
use? How did you use? Was it useful? Wasn't it useful? So
Exactly.
it doesn't necessarily need to be involved, in the project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got 3 minutes of the call left. So just in terms of next steps and wrapping it up, what do you guys feel as next steps? Coming off the top of my mind is we've got this GitHub page now with all of the community calls, research calls done in the community. So these are practically what's being done out in the wild. As a next step, I think it would be good to go into those calls. And I mean, I can use an auto transcribe tool, auto AI, something like that. Maybe go through those calls, run them through an AI tool, and get a bunch of transcripts and see what information we can get out of those transcripts. That's one thing we could do because these are actual calls we've had with projects in the community. Um, I see that as being a practical next step. Um, and then I can also just put together just maybe a document with the discussions we've had, with the questions that we feel needs to be answered around this project.
Christoph was complaining no one watches those calls, but he didn't expect AI to watch those calls regularly.
Yeah, you can just put them through an AI tool. But yeah, what do you guys feel in terms of next steps? What would be good in terms of the next steps?
Yeah, I think this is a great
Yeah.
idea. I think before that, I think we should write down questions like what answers do we want to find out from those calls, right? So when you use the AI, you can kind of use those questions to scrap that information from the scripts.
Yeah, that's a good one. Good one. That's what we'll do, Jakob. We will first come up with the questions. We will AI auto transcribe the calls, and then we will ask the transcripts the questions. And we will verify a little bit afterwards to make sure that AI is not hallucinating, because AI likes to hallucinate sometimes. But yeah, okay, that's what we'll do. Cool. Those are the next steps. It's clear. Yeah, and then we can see what we can decide on after that. What would be the next logical things to do? Yeah, that's it. Thanks for joining. It is exactly at the hour. Um, Anything coming to mind as we wrap up the call? Sorry for the silence.
Sorry for silence. That's fine.
Come on, Michael. You're good. You're on the train. You're good. Christoph is busy troubleshooting. He's got no progress, no fixes. Okay.
I'm just wondering about the question with moving it to GitHub pages. That's an interest. Like, I don't feel we have to answer it now, but that's definitely be easier for contribution if it could be a PR system. That would be nice. But on the other hand, we have a nice GitHub Framer websites. I don't know.
We can discuss that more. You know, it's not a decision we need to make now.
Yeah.
But I definitely, you know, with Framer, I feel like it just closes things off to contributions. I'm very happy to learn how to use GitHub pages. I can teach myself. I will reach out for help in the community.
There's also like what I did and kind of did experiment with is Obsidian, and Obsidian is a software that it's a kind of note taking software. Like that basic. It's kind of hard to explain quickly, but basically it's a very powerful tool to create basically notes with many plugins and a kind of link notes between, like to kind of like a third brain, it's called this system. And what is really cool is that all of the nodes are markdown files on your local storage on your local computer, and you can actually make a GitHub repo from that markdown files.
Right.
So basically, everyone can sync and like edit in Obsidian, or but yeah. But so I guess GitHub pages can work similar, and also you can create a website from that easy,
Right.
and quite somewhat easy. And also with GitHub pages, so that's one way. But there are probably other ways, without the need of Obsidian.
I think we should have a discussion in the community, maybe in the research channel as well, because I've also looked into some. You can turn a Notion page into a website as well, and you can just edit. Yeah, there, Michael said the same thing. You can have a Notion, and then you can edit it, and then you can also turn that into a website as well. So there's a few options on the table. We can discuss the pros and the cons of them in the research channel. I think it would be useful to have an open discussion about. Yeah, for sure. Cool. I need to go off to a kid meeting for school, so I will stop the recording. 1 second.